Time on television, and many thanks for joining us again on the program Parliament and Governance. My name is Evan Sunohoge. Well, may I say Happy New Year to you. It is actually the first edition of the program Parliament and Governance 2023, the year 2023. And let me quickly say a very big thank you to all those that will always stay tuned to this television every time the program is held on independent television, Benin City, Edo State, making sure that you make your time count on the program Parliament and Governance. Well, if you watched some of the last episodes that we showed last year, towards the end of 2022, you would have seen the particular episode that had to do with the cashless policy that the CBN, has introduced. And of course, we saw whereby the Senate Committee on Finance and Budgeting had to make suggestion that the CBN had to do a kind of an upward review of the limitation on withdrawals by commercial banks from 100,000 naira as it relates to individuals to 500,000 naira. As a matter of fact, we also mentioned on that edition that the House of Representatives and of course the Senate had to put a kind of a summon on the governor of CBN in the person of Mr. Emefiele. Well, we understand that that summon was never honored, only that the deputy governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria in the person of Mrs. Aisha Ahmed, who is in charge of financial system stability, had to honor that invitation. Anyway, let's quickly see how it played out on the briefing that Mrs. Aisha Mohammed had to do with members of the House of Representatives Committee on Finance and Budgeting.
Data available to us shows that 94% of all transactions, cash transactions, fall below the 500,000 limit. And this includes in areas in the country that are predominantly cash, that are not part of the cashless policy.
Can the CBN tell Nigerians how much was printed out of this new currency?
Over 1.4 million POS agents in Nigeria. And this new policy will render them jobless.
We are spending hard-earned money to print the naira. We cannot keep printing the naira. So as much as we have doubled down on this policy right now, we want you to tell us categorically for how long will this be?
I'm sorry, I'm not able to share that figure now only because I want to give an accurate number.
The statutory duties wasn't optional, obligatory of the CBN under Section 8 of the CBN Act to brief this House on your monetary policies.
All right, at this point, I have to introduce my guest on the program today. We are so privileged to have Dr. Mrs. Stella Omonigo. Dr. Mrs. Stella Omonigo, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. And
nice seeing you on this program again this year.
Thank you for having me. Good day, viewers at home, and Happy New Year to you all.
Okay. All right. So, Barrister Emmanuel Obakbolo, Happy New Year, and you're welcome back on this program, Parliament and Governance.
Thank you very much. Compliment of the season to Nigerians.
Okay. All right. So, just like what we saw in the video footage that we just saw, the briefing that Mrs. Aisha Ahmed had to do before the House members, the House Committee members on Finance and Budgeting about the cashless policy and, of course, the introduction of the new Naira notes. We saw various arguments how the time frame that the CBN is placing is too short now, and also concerning the new Naira notes that is in circulation. How much exactly did the CBN, how much exactly has the CBN printed? All these are issues of controversy. I'll start with Dr. Mrs. Stella Omonigo. What is your reaction to the video that we just saw, particularly as it relates to that briefing?
Well, I have my reservation concerning the video. First of all, the House summoned the CBN governor weeks ago. So it was not just a kind of an immediate thing. And so he had enough time to plan. So I was actually surprised to see that it was the deputy who appeared before the House instead of the governor himself. And, as we saw, the deputy could not answer most of the questions thrown to her because she appeared not to even have information about her own office and about, the modus operandi of the CBN. And that's actually quite worrisome. So does it mean that Emefiele is working solo if his own deputy next to him does not have figures, does not have information about some of the things, very, very serious things going on, you know, in the office. For example, she couldn't tell the House how much, and she could not tell Nigerians how much was printed. And I think that that's one of the most important things and figure she's supposed to have, and anybody working in the CBN should have, to know how much was printed and how much was released into circulation. In fact, an average Nigerian is supposed to know that, so that you know what you're dealing with. That's on one side. And then the second part was that the CBN governor did not deem it fit. So yes, he has said, they said he's outside the country, you know, based on a health grant, he had gone for health care outside the country. But the truth about it is that he was given enough notice, you know, to appear before the House. And then he chose to travel at a time like this during festive period, you know, all in the name of going for medical vacation. I don't think is good enough, knowing fully well that he brought up a policy that will affect over 200 million of Nigerians. And he didn't deem it fit to, you know, to appear and explain and in fact clarify so many issues and so many uncertainties. I don't think that is good enough. And this brings me, you know, to the attitude, the lackadaisical attitude of public officers, of public position holders, you know, in Nigeria, towards their attitude towards the well-being of Nigerians, the well-beings. In fact, as we saw in that video, you saw that honorable member talking about POS, people who operate POS in the society, people who depend on, you know, some of these monetary transactions and everything. And the deputy could not answer this question. So now the question is, does it mean that they are not going to appear again before the House? When will Nigerians get answers to their questions? These people should know that they are answerable to Nigerians and not answerable to them. I always say it when I come on and when I have the opportunity. Nobody is more Nigerian than the others. And then when you give policies, you don't care how the policies will affect the people. You go out of the country without answering major questions about these policies made by you, and your deputy, the person you send, your representative does not even have an idea of how to answer some of these questions. I think it is very worrisome, and I don't think it's something that should be taken with levity. I personally think they should summon the CBN governor to quickly return and appear before Nigerians and explain some of these things to Nigerians.
Now, Barrister Bakolo, the arguments that how much exactly has the CBN printed? But also, we understand that the amounts to be printed is going to be done in batches now. You know, that the CBN has started printing in batches. Perhaps that is the reason why that Mrs. Aisha Mohammed could not mention the figure that the CBN has printed as it relates to the new Naira notes. Don't you think so?
Well, Mr. Evans, the politicians in Nigeria keep displaying the Orwellian prose titled Animal Farm. And in that Animal Farm, one of the commandments, to be precise, the second commandment, say all animals are equal, which was later metamorphosed into some animals are more equal than others. That is what we've seen in Nigeria. First of all, let's go back to the CBN Act, Section 8, subsection 4, paragraph A of the CBN Act 2007. That is the extant law that regulates the activities of the Central Bank of Nigeria. It provides, and I read in phrase, that the governor of the Central Bank shall appear at a semi-annual hearing of the National Assembly, paragraph A, to brief them of its 1, activities, objective, plans. Then paragraph B says that it will also brief the National Assembly of the money policy and economic development. Then subsection 5 said this Central Bank governor shall also brief the president of his activity. And we saw Emefiele quickly ran to Daura to meet the president.
Yeah, but Aisha Mohammed, she's a governor. She's not a governor of CBN, only that she's the deputy governor.
The act did not say upon someone. The act did not say upon someone. The act says he shall appear to brief them. And paragraph, that is subsection 4.
When you say he shall appear now, that should be based on invitation, some form of
Shall is mandatory. The word shall is mandatory, sir. So, but we saw him flagrantly disobeyed the provisions of the act that regulates him. Be it as it may. Now, his deputy, Mrs. Aisha Ahmed, appeared after 2 summons, 2 invitations by the National Assembly. 2. And do you know, the National Assembly, the Central Bank Act, section 8, subsection 4A, paragraph A, provide that before the National Assembly, meaning joint house. But here we saw her. She came before the committee of the House of Representatives. Are you getting me, sir?
Yeah, I'm listening.
And questions were put to her because she was unprepared, and that goes to tell you that Nigeria is a land of fairy tales. The people who occupy government offices, because they find themselves in positions maybe they never envisage, and they are now enveloped with the euphoria of celebration of that office.
Yeah, you cannot also...
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Now, was she not aware that she was appearing before the National Assembly? Would you also tell me that she wasn't aware? Because she came herself.
Can I join Barrister to say something? You see, this whole thing is a kind of politically staged drama. You know, just imagine, you know, I'm a teacher. And then a student comes for presentation. You have been told that you're going to present, you know, you have a 10 paper to present, and you call for presentation, and in the course of your presentation, you know you'll be asked questions. And then they ask you 1, 2, 3 questions you are unable to answer. 2 things are involved. Is it that you prepared a script to present without preparing the major thing about that topic you are discussing? Because there are some fundamental issues, Mr. Evans and fellow Nigerians, fundamental issues about CBN and policy. We know that they are in charge of our monetary policies and everything concerning money. And you know that the subject for the day was about the new notes, and then, you know, so there are some essential information you should get. Let me give another example. You know, in the university setting, for example, you have the vice chancellor, then you have the admission officer. Now, the admission officer, as a matter of fact, it is the admission officer that will tell the vice chancellor the quota of students to be admitted per year. It's something that you are supposed to have in your palm at every time, even when sleeping. You should be able to give us the quota, you know, JAMB had given to the institution for admission. And then how many you as an individual, you know, are going to admit. These are fundamental questions. How much was printed? Because let me tell you, Nigerian money is involved in the printing of these notes. So you and I tell you, hold on. My point is that we should be able. Hold on. We're
not looking at the total amount yet.
Let me not lose my line of thought. Let me not lose my line of. My point is that these people, quoting from, in fact, following what I just said about the law and everything, they are answerable to us. They are accountable to us. Now you use our money to print these notes, and then you are not able. The deputy, look, let me tell you, my deputy is supposed to be next to me in policy. Now my deputy cannot tell me how much you mean. So that means that there was no documentation or there was no amount fixed to be printed that the leader does not know. And don't forget that a deputy acts in the absence of the principal, you know, and acts like the principal.
Dr. Mrs.
So we expected Mrs. Aisha Ahmad to come forth with figures, facts and figures,
okay,
to tell Nigerians.
Beautiful.
So there are 2 things I observed there. It is either she's trying to keep information from Nigerians, or she doesn't know at all.
Okay.
She has to tell us what happened at that moment.
Let's look at this thing, because we're going to be looking at something else on the program today. I mean, the word honorable now is a new bill that I think it's the very first bill that we are seeing the House of Representatives, the Speaker actually trying to sponsor now, talking about removing the word honorable from the way House members are going to be, addressed. We're going to come to that, any moment from now. Now, Dr. Barrister Emmanuel Obakpolo. Now, the CBN has told us that the CBN does not have a handle on the total amounts in circulation in Nigeria. They have owned up, they have told us that. So one of the ways of trying to handle this now is to redesign the Naira note so that they can know the total amounts in circulation. Now, the way it stands now, the redesigning is going to be done in stages. This is the first stage that we're seeing now. The amount that was gotten from the first redesign is in circulation. So don't you think when Mrs. Aisha Ahmed said that she doesn't know, probably she's saying that the way it stands now, we don't have the total amount that is going to be printed as it were now. Don't you think so?
No, absolutely no. We'll see. Mr. Evans.
I'm trying to think along the way Nigerians are saying
it's ridiculous.
Is this the first time Nigeria is doing the
Naira redesign
of the Naira? Is this the first time, for goodness sake? And outside that, we are in a democratic setting. Even before the thoughts of this policy came to their mind, they ought to have told Nigerians. They ought, if possible, make it open. Let people bring 10 paper. Let people bring
suggestions,
proposals, so to speak, on how this should be done. See, no man is an island. And that is the singular reason why these persons have disgraced themselves. In all honesty, she disgraced the central bank.
Well, you cannot say so,
Mr. Evans, yeah. The central bank, it goes to tell us that there are some persons somewhere, politicians, who are in charge of the central bank.
Okay. All right.
That is the implication of the fairy tale these men and women have just displayed to us. And thank God for some members of the House of Representatives. You can see how furious they were. You can see how tenacious they were with their questions. And they didn't bother to give a laughter over it.
Yeah, but
even when the speaker tried to manipulate them, they refused. They were stern.
Yeah, I've been issued before Mrs. Ahmed came to the House members were already angry because the cash withdrawal limitation was an issue, going to be an issue to them.
No, but can I say something about it? You see, in as much as people see the anger or the reaction of the members of the House, I have my reservation about them. I see it as they are also fountain for their own personal gain. Because right from the moment they talked about the policy and the limit of the withdrawal a day, daily withdrawal, they found that they were not happy because they knew that it was going to block their way or whoever's way, from withdrawing so much cash at the same time and so on. So some of this anger you are seeing may just be because of personal reasons. But that aside, my point is this. Barrister raised some things. He quoted the part of the laws guiding the CBN, and I think that these are things that had been ignored over time that has brought us to this point. I always said that whenever we make mistakes and we realize our mistakes, we can correct it from there. I actually want to thank the House for summoning the CBN governor. But if we are to put this law into action, that means that before they came out openly with the policy, they were supposed to have briefed the House. And even brought out samples and given how much they are going to print, how much it will cost them to print. Aisha Ahmad was not able to even talk about how much, nothing. She was not able to, deputy by politics. That is what we saw. You see, when you put a round hole in a round shape in a square hole, it doesn't fit. And that was what she's a fellow woman like me, but what I saw that day, it wasn't something that I would applaud to as a woman. Okay. Because if you are given an opportunity to serve, you serve well, not because you are related to somebody, because how I saw it that, how can you not be able to answer, you were not able to answer simple questions about your office is a terrible thing. And that's aside. But the point I'm trying to make here is that they were supposed to have met, with the House. There's even brought, like you said, brought proposals. They will look at it together and they will see how it will benefit Nigerians before they will now come out to do. Nobody can just wake up from sleep maybe you had a bad dream and you just come and you just say you are changing naira. What was wrong with our naira? You say you want to know how much was in circulation. Okay, fine. And then you change it, you just change the color and everything. We have not seen the quality, whether the quality will even be as good. We don't know how much you are spending. We're saying Nigeria is poor. You are spending so much money to print naira. The question is, was that our problem?
All right,
was that our problem? What benefit will it be to our economy?
All right,
you see,
so
the thing is really ridiculous.
Let us not dwell so much on
and
this.
then now you gave
it. 820 billion was spent in printing in this.
How did you get that information? Where did you get it from?
CBN has not been able to come up.
I will give you the facts.
Is that verified information?
CBN has not been able to come up with it.
820 billion. Was spent.
Is that what the CBN told you?
No, has been spent so far because they are still printing.
Anyway, let us come off that issue now, because the issue of the cash withdrawal is not the only thing we're going to be looking at today on the program. Now, the House members, the National Assembly members, came on board after the recess, the Christmas and the New Year recess, and of course they came back to work. And one of the first things they did was to pass the 2023 appropriation bill, into law. So as it stands now, we have a new budget law in place. Now, also in addition to that, we saw the Speaker of the House of Representatives in the person of Femi Gbajabiamila, making a kind of a case for the removal of the word honorable from the designation that members of House of Representatives are going to be called with or known as. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here we are again. For so many Nigerians, the word honorable is not as important as the effect that a House of Representative member is on the floor of the National Assembly. I'll start with you.
Just like I said before, people just wake up from a bad dream and they will just come up with something. Please tell me what honorable or dishonorable has got to do, the appellation or the title of House members, what it has got to do with the present problems in Nigeria. Now, this is how I see it. I'm not against, he can change it, he can call them anything he wants to call them. But the rat I smell here is that throughout his tenure as Speaker, it never occurred to him that they shouldn't be addressed as honorable. It's now that he's on his way out that is now, he now remembers suddenly that he had to sponsor. These things are laughable. Do they think they are playing? They are just playing on our intelligence. And I see some of these things as mere distractions. There are, sometimes, let me tell you, sometimes when a child is doing something, you'll be doing something to distract you, the parent, so that you will not see the major thing that child is doing. To me,
so I
feel that we usually come to know it after they must have done whatever they are doing. Because I see it as unreasonable. It doesn't make any economic sense to us. It doesn't even make any political sense to us. So what is the essence of he had better bills. During the protracted ASU strike, why did he not sponsor a bill that will help government to pay striking lecturers? There are so many bills. He could sponsor a bill concerning healthcare in Nigeria. He could sponsor a bill concerning the Alimanjiris in the northern part of Nigeria. What has honorable and dishonorable got to do with the present problem in Nigeria? There are so many policies there are so many bills he could sponsor. I just feel that it's a political thing. They are living this political war, power tussle and everything. You want to go now, you want to pull down, some people and bring them down, and because you are living, it doesn't work that way. Okay, I don't feel that it's a kind of game they are playing, and Nigerians should not fall for it.
Okay. Now, Barrister Bakpolo, some people may say that it does not have any economic relevance to us as Nigerians, but let's look at the legal relevance, because just like what Femi Gbajabiamila said, that the legislation is titled a Bill for an Act to amend the Legislative Houses Powers and Privileges Act 2017. And of course, it goes thus to read that before now, that members were known as reps. They were known as representatives. And of course, even the senators were known as senators. But the word honorable came into the Nigerian Nigerian political space, and we now call them honorable. So Femi Gbajabiamila is trying to probably take back, how it was, ab initio, the right word that they should be used for them.
In consonant with what Doctor said, I think it's a mere political appendage, and therefore mere political gimmick. It's just a gimmick that Femi is trying to display just now. Maybe because he's not double sure that he's coming back. Maybe for other political reasons that they may not reveal now. But with time, Nigerians will know where they are going to. But all in summary, we have come to understand the political arithmetic played by these politicians. That these politicians don't mean well for Nigeria. But all they know is three-point agenda, me, myself, and I. And I think that is just where the man is driving to. Maybe perhaps, like I did say, with time, we'll understand why he has come forth with this bill. But I want to assure you that this bill will not see the light of the day.
Okay, so we'll keep our fingers crossed. After all, it's just a bill that has been introduced, so it's going to go through first reading, second reading, and eventually it gets the accents of the House, thereby transferring it to the President for accent. Well, I want to say a very big thank you to Dr. Mrs. Stella Monago. I know you're still itching, you want to say something, but because of time
I would have loved to.
So we'll say a very big thank you, and we'll say Happy New Year. So we pray that this year is going to bring a lot of changes on the floor of the National Assembly as laws and legislations will be made in our country. Well, a very big thank you for coming, Barrister Emmanuel Bakbalo. Well, that's the show today, Parliaments and Governance, the very first edition for the year 2023, and we say Happy New Year.